When you look at a beautiful skyscraper right in the middle of a major city, you just see um, this sleek, finished monolith of glass and steel, right?
Right. Just reaching for the clouds.
Exactly. It looks completely intentional, like it was always meant to be exactly that shape, standing in exactly that spot.
Yeah, it looks inevitable. Like it was just, effortlessly perfect.
Yes, it's a monument. But what you absolutely do not see are the brutal, soul-crushing zoning board meetings.
Oh, God, yeah. The bureaucracy.
Right. You don't see the screening matches over the plumbing schematics
Hmm.
or the compromises that were made because the lead investor suddenly decided they, I don't know, hated the color of the lobby marble.
Or the sheer nightmare it took just to pour the concrete foundation.
Exactly. The messy, chaotic, deeply flawed human fingerprints are completely hidden by that polished facade. We just get to walk by, grab our coffee, and admire the shiny result.
Which is nice for us, but it really hides the struggle.
It does. And that is exactly the illusion we are stripping away today. We are looking at the hilarious, ego-driven, absolutely beautiful disaster that is the process of making art, commercial art, to be specific.
The messy stuff.
The very messy stuff. So welcome, everyone. Today, we are opening Volume 72 of our ongoing Porter-Pedia exploration.
It's hard to believe we're on 72 already.
I know, right? But it's our continuing journey, completely dedicated to the world, the work, and the wonderfully complex life of the legendary Cole Porter.
And, it is always a thrill to be back unpacking the intricacies of Porter's genius with you. The man really left us an absolute treasure map of 20th century culture.
He really, really did. Now, for those of you who've been with us on this journey, and I know many of you are serious Porter aficionados, you'll remember that we've previously dissected the brilliant rapid-fire references in his famous list songs.
Oh, those are some of my favorites.
Right. We've looked at the agrarian satire in farming. We broke down the ultimate compliment engine of "You're the top."
Such a masterpiece.
And we explored the romantic absurdity in "They Couldn't Compare to You," and of course the iconic cultural whiplash of "Anything Goes."
It was just mandatory listening.
Absolutely mandatory. I highly encourage you to go back and check those out if you haven't already, because they really set the stage for how his mind works.
Yeah, they are foundational to understanding how Porter didn't just write for the culture of his time. He used the culture as his actual instrument. Like, he played the zeitgeist like a piano.
That's a great way to put it. And listen, if you enjoy this type of granular exploration, you absolutely must buy the book Porter-Pedia.
Oh, 100%. It's vital.
It is an essential companion to our explorations here. The book explains every single historical, cultural, and literary reference Cole Porter ever dropped in his lyrics.
Which is a lot.
We are talking over 2,600 references in total. It is an incredible, almost overwhelming resource, and you can find the link to grab a copy right there in the description.
It is genuinely staggering when you see all those references compiled in one physical place. It's not just a lyric book, it's practically an encyclopedia of the aspirations, the snobbery, and the humor of Western culture over, 4 decades?
At least, it really is. Also, before we get moving, please check the description for a link to an amazing performance of the song we are focusing on today, plus a link to the full lyrics.
You simply must hear it.
You really must. Hearing the rhythm, the bounce, and the sheer vocal dexterity required to perform it, it's crucial to fully appreciating the wit we are about to analyze. You really need to have those lyrics in front of you as we go.
Having the text handy will definitely enhance this journey because, the rhyme schemes are intricate and the jokes come really fast.
They do. Because today, our mission is very specific. We're exploring the references dropped in a magnificent 1944 deep-cut comic narrative song called "I Wrote a Play."
A phenomenal track.
It really is. This song is nothing short of a masterclass in theatrical self-parody. It is Porter brilliantly satirizing Broadway, prestige, and the sheer unadulterated vanity of the show business machine.
Right. It's Porter aiming his incredibly sharp pen at the very world that made him famous, the very producers who paid his bills.
And the audiences who applauded him.
Exactly. And he does it with such charm that they probably didn't even realize they were bleeding until the song was over.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because to really get the joke, we have to understand the room Cole Porter was playing to. We can't just look at the lyrics in a vacuum.
Right. Context is everything.
So we need to set the scene, the cultural temperature, if you will. Take us back to 1944. What is the vibe in America, and specifically in New York City?
Well, if we look at the historical backdrop of 1944, America is in a very unique, very fragile transitional state World War II is still raging across the globe.
It's the defining reality of the era.
Completely. Millions of Americans are deployed overseas. Rationing is still a daily reality for everyone at home. And the anxiety of the past few years has been this heavy, suffocating blanket.
But things are shifting, right?
Yes. By 1944, the tide has definitively turned, and Allied victory is finally looking not just possible, but highly likely. The end is theoretically in sight.
Right, so people can finally see the light at the end of the tunnel, but they're still deep in the exhaustion of wartime.
Exactly. It's this weird mix of profound fatigue and cautious, bubbling optimism.
And because of that specific psychological cocktail, I'd imagine Americans are absolutely desperate for entertainment.
Desperate for it. But they want a very specific kind of entertainment.
Yeah.
They are seeking escape, absolutely. They want to forget the headlines for a few hours.
Sure.
But they also want reassurance. They want to laugh. They want glamour. They want to see beautiful people in beautiful clothes singing beautiful melodies.
And Broadway is ready to deliver.
Oh, yes. Broadway at this time is a booming central cultural institution. The theater district is packed with major productions, massive stars, and wildly influential producers. It is a highly centralized hub of cultural power.
It's the beating heart of American culture. Like, if it happened on Broadway, it mattered everywhere.
It did. But, and this is a crucial but that drives a lot of the tension in the song we're discussing, Hollywood's influence is rapidly growing.
The movies.
Right. The film industry is no longer just the novelty it was a couple of decades prior. It is becoming this massive, wealthy, culture-dominating industrial force that is starting to really shadow Broadway.
Because the scale is just totally different.
The money in Los Angeles is astronomical compared to New York. And the tension between the stage and the screen, between the so-called pure art of the theater and the mass commerce of the movies, is palpable.
And right in the middle of this booming, shifting landscape, we have the venue for our song. Because I Wrote a Play was not a standalone pop single on the radio. It was written for a very specific production called Seven Lively Arts.
Yes. Seven Lively Arts was a lavish, spare-no-expense 1944 revue put on by Billy Rose, who was a legendary, larger-than-life showman himself.
Oh, Billy Rose was quite the character.
He really was. Billy Rose was a guy who thought big. He produced everything from Broadway shows to massive aquacades at World's Fair.
Literally filling stages with water.
Exactly. So when he decided to put on review, it was going to be an absolute cultural event.
Now, I want to pause here because we need to talk about what a review actually is.
Yeah.
Because the format is the key to unlocking why Porter wrote this song the way he did.
It's a very different beast from what we know today.
Right? When most people today picture a Broadway musical, they're thinking of a traditional book musical.
A story with a plot.
Exactly. A unified narrative, characters that grow and change. A plot that has a clear beginning, middle, and end. And the song serves specifically to move that narrative forward or deepen a specific character's emotional state.
I think Hamilton or Wicked.
Or even Rodgers and Hammerstein's Oklahoma, which had just revolutionized the form a year earlier in 1943.
That's right. The book musical was becoming the dominant, serious art form, but a review is entirely different. A review is inherently decentralized.
No plot to follow.
None. It doesn't have a central plot. It is a collection of disparate sketches, standalone songs, specialty acts, comic monologues, and dance numbers, often tied together only by a very loose, overarching theme.
It's basically variety. It's vaudeville's sophisticated, wealthier cousin.
That's a perfect description.
So my question is, why was that format so important for a writer like Cole Porter at this specific moment in his career? Doesn't a review seem a bit, I don't know, structurally flimsy compared to a grand book musical?
It might seem that way to modern sensibilities, sure.
Oh.
But for a satirist like Cole Porter, the review format was a superpower.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. It gave him the ultimate creative freedom. In a strict book musical, a songwriter has to serve the story. If you write a brilliant joke, but it doesn't make sense for the character of the lovelorn farm boy to sing it, you have to cut the joke.
Right. The joke dies for the sake of the plot.
But in a review, Porter had the freedom to write standalone, highly topical, razor-sharp satire. He didn't have to worry about advancing a plot or maintaining character consistency across two acts. He could just look at the world around him, pick a target, and fire.
So he could be a columnist, basically, but with a piano.
Exactly. He could write songs that commented directly on contemporary culture, on the news of the day, or, in the case of I Wrote a Play, on the sheer ridiculousness of his own industry.
That makes so much sense. The review format allowed his wit to be the star, untethered from narrative constraints.
Yes.
Which brings us to the man himself, and a piece of context that I think elevates this song from just being a clever piece of satire into something genuinely awe-inspiring.
It's a heavy piece of context, but necessary.
It really is. There is this incredibly stark, almost painful contrast between the lighthearted, sparkling, effortless comedy of I Wrote a Play and Cole Porter's personal daily reality in 1944.
It is one of the great, quiet tragedies of American music, and it profoundly colors how we should listen to his later work.
In 1937, Cole Porter suffered a catastrophic horseback riding accident.
Just horrific.
His horse got spooked, reared up, fell, and essentially rolled on top of him, completely crushing both of his legs. It left him in chronic, agonizing, unrelenting pain for the rest of his life.
It's hard to overstate how bad it was. He required dozens of major, excruciating surgeries over the years. He was constantly battling bone infections, and he lived with the perpetual, terrifying threat of amputation, which, tragically, eventually did happen to one of his legs much later in his life.
The sheer physical suffering he endured on a daily basis just to get out of bed and exist is hard to even comprehend.
Right.
We are talking about a time before modern pain management protocols.
Right. No modern painkillers. He was in sheer agony.
And yet he kept writing. And he didn't just write dark, brooding, pain-filled dirges. He wrote these effervescent, joyful, effortlessly witty, bouncing comic songs.
It's an incredible triumph of will.
The awe-inspiring discipline it takes to write meticulously crafted comedy where every syllable has to land perfectly to get a laugh while your body is fundamentally failing you. It's staggering.
Truly staggering.
Imagine being in profound physical agony, sitting at a piano, and composing a song about the silly egos of Broadway producers that feels like a feather floating on a breeze.
What's fascinating here is the illusion of casualness in Porter's work. It is a hallmark of his genius, and honestly, it was a necessary psychological survival mechanism for him.
The humor kept him going.
Yes.
Yep.
When you listen to I Wrote a Play, the narrator sounds so unbelievably spontaneous. It literally feels like you're sitting across from a friend in a dimly lit, slightly smoky bar, and they're just complaining over a dry martini about the terrible, ridiculous day they had at work.
Right. It has this totally conversational rhythm. Like, you'll never believe what happened to me today at the producer's office.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
But that illusion of casual, tossed-off storytelling is a magic trick. It completely masks an extraordinarily precise, rigid comic design.
Every word is calculated.
Every single syllable, every internal rhyme, every escalating joke is engineered with the precision of a Swiss watch. He was building these delicate, perfect comedic mechanisms while enduring unimaginable pain.
It's wild to think about.
Contemporary accounts from people who worked with him at the time always emphasize his meticulousness. He was not just tossing these off, he was intensely hardworking, deeply engaged with his craft, and he fiercely refused to let his physical suffering extinguish his public wit. The elegance was a shield.
That context makes the song so much more powerful to me. He's laughing at the world, he's bringing joy and sophisticated escapism to wartime audiences while carrying this massive, invisible personal burden.
Heroic, really.
It is heroic in a very cynical, urbane sort of way. So with all that in mind, let's get into the actual machinery of this song. Let's look at the setup and this epic, timeless struggle of making art.
The structure of I Wrote a Play is brilliant because it establishes its premise immediately. It's a comic story song.
Okay, so it has a narrative.
Yes. Instead of your standard verse-chorus pop song structure about falling in love or missing a hometown, this unfolds as a highly linear sequence of escalating episodes.
It completely avoids traditional romance. This isn't a boy meets girl song, which is deeply ironic, as we'll see in a second.
Very true.
This is a narrative about gatekeepers. It's about an aspiring, perhaps slightly naive, definitely earnest playwright, and the gauntlet of powerful, egotistical people blocking his path to simply getting his work in front of an audience.
Let's look at the opening lyrics, which perfectly establish the tone of the narrator. The song begins, I wrote a play, and it took me many a day. It took me many a month, here. It took me many a hungry year. Yet I still thrill when I say that I wrote a play.
It's so good. It's this totally mock heroic opening. The narrator is treating the creation of his play as this grand, mythological, almost biblical struggle.
The many a hungry year.
The sacrifice. The years of devotion in a freezing garret somewhere, pouring his soul onto the page.
And the comedy is born right there in that first stanza, from the massive gaping contrast between the playwright's earnest, sacrificial devotion to his art and the completely ridiculous, undignified, humiliating fate that we were about to watch the supposed masterpiece suffer.
Setting him up for a huge fall.
Exactly. Porter is setting up a balloon of artistic pretension specifically so he can pop it over and over again.
And what is this monumental, life-consuming masterpiece? When he finally finishes it, he sings, "It must have a title with sweep and swirl." Then I suddenly thought of it. Boy Loves Girl.
It's brilliant. Boy Loves Girl. That is the absolute pinnacle of his artistic achievement after all those hungry years.
I mean, it represents the most straightforward, accessible, utterly simple, arguably cliché art imaginable.
It's completely pedestrian.
It's earnest. It's heartfelt. But it's definitively not a complex, layered, avant-garde masterpiece. It is the most generic distillation of human drama possible.
Which is exactly why it's the perfect blank canvas for what happens next.
Right.
If the play were actually a brilliant, dense, complicated work of genius, the tragedy of its destruction would be too sad for a comic song.
We'd actually feel bad for him.
Right. But because the play is simply Boy Loves Girl, it becomes a mirror. It reflects the neuroses and the egos of the producers who try to fix it.
You know, reading this, I can't help but draw an analogy to modern creative struggles because the dynamic hasn't changed one bit.
Oh, not at all.
This feels exactly like a young, passionate indie filmmaker taking their deeply personal, heartfelt little script about, like, a family driving across Ohio and pitching it to a massive movie studio.
Oh, I can see where this is going.
And suddenly the studio executives are sitting around a glass table saying, "We love the heart of it, but what if the grandfather is secretly a cyborg and the climax takes place in low Earth orbit because the international market really responds well to zero-gravity laser fights?"
Yes, perfect analogy. Or tech startup founder.
Oh, absolutely.
Someone who builds a simple, elegant, beautiful little app just to help people, I don't know, organize their grandmother's recipes, and they take it to a venture capital firm on Sand Hill Road to get funding.
Big mistake.
Right. And the VCs say, this recipe app is great, but we need to pivot to blockchain, integrate an AI crypto mining function, and sell the user's grocery data to targeted advertising conglomerates to maximize our Series B valuation.
Exactly. The original soul of the thing, the simple, helpful idea, just gets completely obliterated by the machinery of the industry that's supposed to help it grow.
It's tragic but inevitable.
Which makes me want to ask you, and honestly, anyone listening who has ever tried to make something and put it out into the world, is this just the ultimate inevitable too many cooks scenario? Or is this a necessary evil of commercial art?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because let me play devil's advocate for a second. Does art need producers and gatekeepers to find an audience, even if they ruin it in the process? Like, if you don't play the game, your play just sits in a drawer forever.
Right. That is the eternal, agonizing tension of commercial art, and Porter captures it perfectly. Art needs capital to reach a mass audience, especially in incredibly expensive mediums like theater or film.
You can't pay actors with good vibes.
Exactly. You can't rent a Broadway house or build a soundstage with good intentions. But capital always has its own agenda. Capital wants a return on investment.
Which means mitigating risk.
Right, which means relying on formulas, stars, established trends, and spectacle. The producers in this song aren't necessarily malicious villains twirling their mustaches.
They're just doing their jobs.
They are businessmen trying to ensure the product survives in a brutal, fickle marketplace. But their help, their market-driven interference, often destroys the very charm, the very soul that made the art worthwhile in the first place.
And that tension is the engine that drives this entire song forward. So our earnest playwright has his simple, folksy script, Boy Loves Girl. What does he do? He takes it to the epicenter of commercial theater.
He takes it to Broadway to find a buyer.
Which brings us to step one, and the systematic destruction of his vision. He sings, "Then I packed my play and carried it quick to Broadway, where I dug up a millionaire friend of mine who took Gilbert Miller somewhere to dine."
Let's stop right there. Gilbert Miller. This is our very first gatekeeper.
And a very specific, carefully chosen one.
Oh, absolutely. To modern audiences, that name might not ring a bell. He's not a household name today like Spielberg or Scorsese. But in 1944, Gilbert Miller was an absolute titan of the theater.
Let's look at how the playwright gets to him. The lyrics say the millionaire friend filled the great gourmet so full of feed that finally Gilbert agreed to read, without a moment's delay, Boy Loves Girl, my pearl of a play.
Notice the mechanism of access here. It's incredibly cynical.
The dining out.
Right. The playwright doesn't get his script read because it's brilliant or because he submitted it through the proper channels. He gets it read because he has a rich friend who literally stuffs Gilbert Miller with expensive food.
It's entirely transactional. Access to power comes through social maneuvering, having the right wealthy connections, and literal fine dining, not artistic merit. The gatekeeper must be appeased with truffles before he will look at the art.
It's a perfect encapsulation of networking.
So who exactly was this Gilbert Miller, and why did he need to be fed? Let's dive into his archetype.
Gilbert Miller was one of America's most influential and prolific theatrical producers. He was essentially Broadway royalty from birth. He was the son of a very famous actor-manager, Henry Miller.
Oh, so he grew up in it.
Completely. Gilbert had a long, incredibly influential career, eventually winning multiple Tony Awards later in life. But his specific reputation, his brand, the lane he occupied in the theatrical ecosystem, was importing international, highly sophisticated, usually British or European plays to Broadway.
He's the fancy guy.
He represented prestige, refinement, and continental elegance.
And the lyrics specifically call him the great gourmet. Was that just a convenient rhyme for Porter?
Not at all. It was completely biographically accurate. The New Yorker famously profiled him and described him as an absolute bon vivant.
A man about town.
Yes, someone who enjoyed the high society social scene, the exclusive clubs, and fine dining just as much, if not more, than he enjoyed the theater itself. He was a man of massive appetites, both literal and cultural.
So he's this powerful, cosmopolitan, wealthy snob. Our earnest playwright gives this sophisticated gourmand his simple, folksy play, Boy Loves Girl.
And what happens?
Well, the song says Miller takes a year and a day to read it again, the dragging bureaucracy of the industry. And what is his ultimate verdict?
The song goes, Gilbert phoned me to say, I think your play is excellent stuff, but hardly European enough.
Hardly European enough. It's such a perfect, devastating encapsulation of a certain type of cultural cringe that America has wrestled with for centuries.
Oh, the American inferiority complex.
Exactly. The idea that a simple American story about regular people isn't art, unless it has a faux continental sheen slapped on it.
Miller represents the faction of the intelligentsia that believes proximity to European aristocracy equals artistic weight. So Miller proposes what he casually calls slight alterations.
Very slight.
He wants to change the title from the universal Boy Loves Girl to the incredibly specific, class-obsessed Hungarian Princess Loves British Earl.
Which is just a spectacular, hilarious escalation. We've gone from relatable, everyday romance that anyone in the audience could understand to aristocratic, European, high society melodrama in one single step.
It's a totally different play now.
Now, I have to push back here for a second just to view it from Miller's perspective.
Yeah.
Because America is in the middle of World War II.
All right.
Europe is literally burning. Audiences are reading horrific headlines about the continent every single day. Was Miller actually completely wrong to want to offer audiences a vision of Europe that was about glamorous princesses and earls rather than the grim reality?
That's a fascinating point.
Wasn't he just providing necessary escapism?
That is a very fair defense of the producer's mindset.
Yeah.
Miller knew his audience. He knew that Broadway audiences, especially the wealthy ones buying the expensive orchestra seats, loved the fantasy of European nobility.
You want the ball gowns.
They love the costumes, the accents, the perceived sophistication. So in a purely commercial sense, Miller is probably right. Hungarian Princess Loves British Earl probably sells more tickets to the carriage trade than Boy Loves Girl.
But the art suffers.
But Porter's point is that the art is being violated to serve that market demand.
And the mechanism for this rewrite is where Porter really twists the knife into the pretension of it all. Because Miller tells the playwright it's being rewritten by Shaw and Molnar.
We need to unpack who he is assigning to rewrite this simple romance because the choice of these specific writers is absurd on a level that the 1944 audience would have found absolutely hysterical.
Let's start with Shaw. That's George Bernard Shaw.
Right, the Irish playwright.
But not just a playwright.
No, Shaw was a critic, a philosopher, and a fiercely dedicated socialist polemicist. He was the author of towering, intellectually dense works like Pygmalion, St. Joan, and Man and Superman.
Heavy stuff.
He was a man who used the stage not for light entertainment, but for heavy, dialectical political critique. By 1944, Shaw was incredibly old. He was in his late 80s, and he was a monolithic cultural figure.
An absolute giant.
He had won both the Nobel Prize in Literature and an Academy Award. He is the absolute pinnacle of intimidating intellectual literary prestige.
And Frank Molnar. Who is he in this equation?
Molnar was a highly celebrated Hungarian dramatist and novelist. He was famous for incredibly sophisticated, complex, often deeply cynical, romantic dramas and comedies that explored the darker, manipulative sides of human relationships.
Okay, so not a writer of light fluff.
Not at all. His most famous work is Lilium, a play about a charming but abusive carnival barker, which was actually later adapted by Rodgers and Hammerstein into the classic musical Carousel.
So think about the sheer cascading absurdity of this scenario. You have this naive little play, Boy Loves Girl.
Right.
And Gilbert Miller's brilliant producing solution is to lock a Nobel-winning elderly Irish socialist philosopher and a cynical, sophisticated Hungarian dramatist in a room together to rewrite it into a frothy story about a Hungarian princess and a British earl.
It is the ultimate blistering satire of prestige theater. It's the tendency to believe that a simple, honest story lacks any inherent value unless you bury it in foreign aristocracy, continental flavor, and heavy intellectual credentials.
The play is being completely alienated from its author.
The original playwright is essentially told, your idea is cute, now let the real geniuses turn it into something unrecognizable.
It's like taking a beautifully simple, perfectly executed grilled cheese sandwich and handing it over to two Michelin-starred French chefs who proceed to deconstruct it until it's a foam of fermented dairy served on a bed of imported truffles with a side of political theory.
I love that, yes.
It's not even food anymore. It's an exercise in pure ego.
Which is precisely why our hero reacts the way he does. The lyric says, so I went to his office that day and stole my pretty play away.
He snatches it back. Good for him. He reclaims his artistic integrity. He refuses to let Shaw and Molnar turn his grilled cheese into a truffle foam.
A small victory.
But unfortunately, he still wants to get produced. He hasn't given up the dream, so he just moves down the street. He goes to the next gatekeeper. He takes it to the Theater Guild.
Which introduces us to an entirely different but equally destructive kind of institutional vanity.
Let's give some real context on the Theater Guild, because to a modern listener, that just sounds like a generic trade union.
It does sound like that.
But they were a massive deal in American theatrical history.
They absolutely were. The Theater Guild wasn't just a producer, it was a pioneering theatrical society and organization.
Okay.
They were founded in 1919 with a very specific, very lofty mission to introduce American audiences to high art, serious, challenging modern drama.
The heavy hitters.
They championed works by people like Shaw, ironically, and Strindberg. They were instrumental in elevating Broadway beyond just light commercial entertainment, vaudeville, and melodrama. They were the self-appointed arbiters of serious theater.
They were an institution.
They had subscribers, they had a board of directors, they were a massive institution.
So our plucky playwright takes Boy Loves Girl to the towering Serious Theater Guild. And their response is so wonderfully casually condescending.
Oh, it drips with condescension.
The lyrics say, they read it and said, it's charming stuff, but of course for the guild, not long enough.
Notice the phrasing, of course, for the guild.
Like it's obvious.
Right. They have a brand to protect. They have subscribers who expect a certain type of evening. Charm isn't enough for them. They need weight. They need gravity. They need importance.
Here's where it gets really interesting. To add this required gravity and length. Who do they assign to rewrite the play? Eugene O'Neill.
The lyric is, so Eugene O'Neill will rewrite the whole thing.
Eugene O'Neill.
Yeah.
The father of modern American drama. The guy who wrote Long Day's Journey into Night, The Iceman Cometh, and Morning Becomes Electra, a 4-time Pulitzer Prize winner and Nobel laureate.
A man not known for his light touch.
Exactly. I mean, O'Neill's plays are famously dark, heavily psychological, largely autobiographical, often deeply depressing, and incredibly, incredibly dense.
The tonal mismatch is the entire joke here. Applying O'Neill's heavy, tragic, fatalistic style to a breezy, charming play called Boy Loves Girl is comedic genius.
It's absurd.
You can just imagine the rewrite. O'Neill taking the simple boy and turning him into a tubercular, guilt-ridden sailor wrestling with his inner demons regarding his mother.
Oh, naturally.
And the girl into a tragic, morphine-addicted figure trapped by her past, both of them drinking themselves to death in a foggy New England saloon over the course of 5 acts.
It's hilarious. The boy loves the girl, but the universe hates them both, so they must suffer. But the guild isn't done. It's not just about hiring a dark writer. It's about the sheer physical size and endurance required to consume the art. They tell the playwright. And when it's longer than Wagner's Ring, we'll start rehearsing your play at once.
The Wagner comparison is the absolute masterstroke of this stanza. Richard Wagner's Ring cycle, Der Ring des Nibelungen, is a monumental four-opera cycle based on Norse and Germanic mythology.
It is the dictionary definition of epic. It is the Mount Everest of the performing arts.
Exactly. It is one of the most ambitious works in the history of classical music. And a complete performance of the Ring cycle takes roughly 15 to 17 hours of stage time to perform, usually spread over 4 consecutive nights.
15 to 17 hours.
Yes.
For a play called Boy Loves Girl. The satirical target here is so incredibly sharp. Porter is skewering the pretentious institutional notion that artistic importance can be accurately measured with a stopwatch.
It's a very common fallacy.
It's this deeply ingrained, slightly puritanical idea that if a piece of art is long and it's tedious and it takes days to get through and makes your back hurt to sit through it, it must be profound.
It's the equating of endurance with artistic value. The Guild essentially believes a play cannot possibly be taken seriously by the critics or their subscribers unless it physically exhausts the audience. It's a brilliant critique of the correlation between suffering and prestige.
And then we get the final nail in the coffin from the Guild. They're going to make it 15 hours long, written by Eugene O'Neill, but they also need stars to sell the tickets.
They need names on the marquee.
They say, we'll start rehearsing your play at once, as we've simply got to revive the Luntz. But as Boy Loves Girl doesn't quite fit in, we have changed the title to Alfred Loves Lynn.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of how Broadway functioned, this line perfectly captures the reality of star-centered theater.
Let's talk about the Luntz, for those who don't know the history of early 20th century theater. They were Alfred Lunt and Lynn Fontanne.
Legend.
They were a married acting couple, and they were unquestionably the most celebrated, famous, and respected acting team on Broadway. They were the Brangelina of the 1930s and 40s theater world, but with massive critical acclaim.
And they were inextricably linked with the Theater Guild. They starred in many of their productions.
Okay, so they were the in-house stars.
Basically, they were universally admired for their elegance, their rapid-fire overlapping dialogue, their wit, and their absolute mastery of stagecraft.
Good.
But their celebrity was so massive, their persona so deeply ingrained in the public consciousness, that it often completely eclipsed the material they performed. When you bought a ticket, you weren't going to see a play. You were going to see the Luntz.
Which means the actors become bigger than the characters. The title changes to Alfred Loves Lynn, because the audience isn't coming to see a fictional story about a nameless boy and girl.
Right. They are coming to see Alfred Lunt and Lynn Fontanne be charming together, essentially playing heightened versions of themselves. The fictional universe of the place has been completely overwritten by the celebrity of the cast.
The playwright has been erased again. His characters don't even have names anymore. They just have the names of the actors playing them. The art is subordinate to the stardom.
It's tragic for the writer.
So once again, our playwright rebels. He will not stand for it. So I rushed to their office that day and snatched my darling play away.
He's still fighting for it.
He's not giving up. But now he pivots. He has tried the European snobs, he has tried the intellectual institutions, and both tried to ruin his work with pretension. So he goes in the complete 180-degree opposite direction.
He abandons high art entirely. He embraces the carnival.
Then heavy-hearted I trod with my play to Michael Todd.
Michael Todd is a fascinating, explosive figure in American entertainment history.
He's quite the contrast.
If the Theater Guild was the solemn, quiet church of high art, Michael Todd was the neon-lit, loud, sawdust-covered circus tent of commercial spectacle.
He was a flamboyant, cigar-chomping Broadway and eventually Hollywood producer. He was known for extravagant, larger-than-life, sometimes completely chaotic productions.
A real showman.
He was a guy who knew how to generate a headline. He actually produced The Hot Mikado, which was a jazz version of the Gilbert and Sullivan operetta starring Bill Bojangles Robinson, which was a massive hit.
He embodied sensationalism. For Todd, subtlety wasn't just a mistake, it was a sin. It meant you were leaving money on the table.
So when he reads the delicate, charming Boy Loves Girl, his reaction is the polar opposite of the Guild's. He doesn't want it longer or deeper or more European.
He says, it's terrific stuff, but for Broadway, it ain't big and dirty enough.
Big and dirty enough. God, I love that phrase.
It's perfect.
It's the rallying cry of pure, unadulterated populism. Todd doesn't want art. He wants an event. He wants a spectacle that people will pay to gawk at.
And look at his proposed changes. First, the venue. He's not putting this in a refined, quiet theater with velvet seats.
No way.
The song says, still, I'm going to produce it just for a lark. I'm taking the mall in Central Park.
The mall in Central Park is this massive, wide, long tree-lined promenade right in the middle of Manhattan. It's a huge public gathering place.
Right. Todd is suggesting a production so physically enormous, so bloated with scale and spectacle, that it literally cannot be contained within the walls of a traditional proscenium theater.
It has to spill out into a massive public park just to hold the sheer size of his vision.
It's an outdoor stadium show.
And the script. Who is rewriting it now?
What?
It's certainly not George Bernard Shaw or Eugene O'Neill.
No, the lyrics go. It's being rewritten by Gypsy Rose. I'm hiring a nudist to do the clothes.
Gypsy Rose Lee. She was America's most famous burlesque performer and striptease artist.
Now, to be historically fair to Gypsy Rose Lee, she was incredibly witty, highly intelligent, and an author herself. She actually wrote a best-selling mystery novel called The G-String Murders.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she was brilliant. But to the general public in 1944, her brand was glamour, sensuality, and taking her clothes off to music.
So you hand your heartfelt, simple romance to a famous Odysseus, a stripper to rewrite, because she knows what the tired businessman wants to see.
Exactly. And you hire a literal nudist as the costume designer, which is an incredible visual joke. The jokes are just piling up.
And the cast.
The cast will consist of Man Mountain Dean and a boatload of babes from the Argentine.
Okay, Man Mountain Dean was a massive, heavily bearded professional wrestler who occasionally did some acting in Hollywood. He weighed over 300 pounds.
His name alone immediately conveys physical excess, lowbrow entertainment, and brute force.
So try to visualize this production. You had a giant bearded pro wrestler, a stage full of glamorous showgirls from the Argentine, a script punched up by a burlesque star, costumes designed by someone who hates clothes, all staged in the middle of Central Park for tens of thousands of people.
It's pure chaos.
And the final touch of pure, unadulterated vanity. And I've changed the title, so help me God, to The Love Life of Michael Todd.
It is the ultimate producer's ego trip. The art doesn't just serve the stars anymore, and it doesn't serve the institution. It serves the producer's own personal mythology. The original play has been completely vaporized by showmanship. The producer has made himself the main character.
Now, I have to step in here and challenge the premise of Porter's satire for a second. I want the listener to think about this, too. Is Michael Todd's vision actually secretly genius?
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
I mean, look at the entertainment landscape today. We live in an era of massive, immersive, spectacle-driven experiences. We have those secret cinema events where they rebuild entire movie sets.
Right.
We have massive pop star stadium tours with literal wrestling-level pyrotechnics and 100-foot video walls. We have immersive theater where you run around huge multi-story warehouses in masks. If someone produced a Central Park burlesque wrestling extravaganza with an Argentine chorus line today, wouldn't it sell out instantly? Wasn't Todd just ahead of his time?
That is a phenomenal point, and it highlights why the song is so sharp. In many ways, yes, Michael Todd was predicting the future of entertainment.
He saw where it was going.
He understood intuitively that in a crowded, noisy marketplace, which 1944 New York was, and which our world is today, you have to offer an experience that is undeniable. You have to overwhelm the senses.
You can't just be quiet and charming.
Exactly. While Porter is satirizing Todd's complete lack of literary taste, Todd's underlying instinct that scale and spectacle are a foolproof way to capture an audience is completely validated by the modern blockbuster movie and immersive entertainment industries.
He was a visionary?
He was. Todd wasn't interested in literature or quiet reflection. He was interested in human attention. And he knew exactly how to capture it. Make it big and make it dirty.
He was basically building the Marvel Cinematic Universe of 1944. Just throw every possible demographic hook at the wall at the same time.
Exactly.
But our poor, exhausted playwright still has some tiny shred of dignity left. He cannot abide Man Mountain Dean playing his romantic lead. So I ran to his office that day and plucked my precious play away.
He escapes again.
He has exhausted Broadway. He has dealt with the European snob, the heady intellectual institution, and the crass carnival showman. He's out of options in New York. There's only one place left to go.
The final frontier of commercialization. The ultimate threat to theatrical purity. Hollywood.
Then I sent to the coast my play, and Sam Goldwyn phoned me to say,
This final stanza is an absolute masterpiece of cultural observation, and it addresses the massive tension between New York and Los Angeles at the time.
Let's talk about Sam Goldwyn, because sending a script to the coast meant entering a completely different, heavily industrialized ecosystem.
It was a whole other world. Sam Goldwyn was a legendary Hollywood producer and studio executive. He was one of the founding forces behind what became MGM Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer.
A giant.
And he later ran his own highly successful independent production company, Samuel Goldwyn Productions. He was one of the most powerful, feared, and influential figures in the global film industry.
So for a New York playwright,
For a New York playwright, Goldwyn symbolized the ultimate Hollywood authority, the raw, unfeeling power of corporate money, and the complete subjugation of the writer to the studio machine.
and Porter captures his voice, his cadence, and his famous malapropisms perfectly in these lyrics. Goldwyn gets on the long-distance phone and says, "Hello, my boy," and "Au revoir. Now listen slowly and have a cigar."
Listen slowly. It's a brilliant turn of phrase.
It really is.
It's a classic Goldwynism. Goldwyn, who was a Polish immigrant whose first language was Yiddish, was famous in Hollywood for these paradoxical, slightly mangled English phrases that somehow made perfect, ruthless, poetic sense.
Like what?
Things like, include me out, or a verbal contract isn't worth the paper it's written on. Porter creates a perfect fake Goldwynism here.
And Goldwyn doesn't sugarcoat his opinion of the playwright's beloved life-consuming work. He doesn't pretend to care about the art like the Theater Guild did.
No, he's very direct.
He says, "Your lousy play is a stinkeroo. I just read part of it all the way through."
Which is another incredible, paradoxical Goldwynism. I read part of it all the way through. He dismisses the actual art immediately. He doesn't care about the story, the character arcs, the dialogue, or the meaning. He probably didn't even read past page 10.
But he cares about one very specific thing.
But I like the title extremely much. Somehow, Boy Loves Girl has the Goldwyn touch.
The Goldwyn touch was a well-known industry phrase at the time, right?
Yes, it referred to his supposed Midas touch for commercial success, his instinct for knowing exactly what middle America wanted to see on a Saturday afternoon.
And what he recognizes in the phrase "boy loves girl" is not literary merit. It's not poetry. It is pure, unadulterated marketability.
It is a phrase that looks good on a marquee. It tells the audience exactly what they are getting. It sells.
And the transaction that Goldwyn proposes next is the absolute peak of absurdity in this entire song. This is the ultimate punchline that the whole song has been building toward.
It's so good.
Goldwyn says, "Now I've bought a play that was tough to get, called Romeo and Juliet."
Let's pause to fully appreciate the setup here. Sam Goldwyn has somehow purchased the exclusive rights to William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet.
Just casually bought the rights.
Arguably the most famous, most respected, most perfectly titled tragic love story in the history of human literature. A play that has survived for nearly 400 years based on the sheer perfection of its language.
But Goldwyn, in his infinite, market-driven, focus group-tested wisdom, thinks the title Romeo and Juliet is too stuffy.
He thinks it's holding the property back.
Right. But if the title was Boy Loves Girl, what a hell of a picture for Milton Berle.
And there is the kill shot, the ultimate Hollywood desecration.
He's going to strip Shakespeare of his immortal poetry and his iconic title, slap the generic phrase "boy loves girl" onto the plot, and turn the greatest tragedy ever written into a broad, slapstick comedy vehicle.
And for who? Milton Berle.
Right. Milton Berle, who would later become known as Mr. Television. He was a pioneering, wildly energetic, manic American comedian.
And total goofball.
He was famous for his hit show Texaco Star Theater, which literally made him television's first true superstar. But his brand of comedy was loud. He was known for dressing in drag, getting hit in the face with pies, aggressive physical comedy, and stealing other people's jokes.
He was the antithesis of Shakespearean subtlety.
So Goldwyn's grand $1 million plan is to take Shakespeare's masterpiece, rename it Boy Loves Girl, and have Milton Berle run around doing physical comedy in tights, while Juliet takes a pie to the face.
It is the ultimate commodification of art.
Art has fully transformed into corporate branding. The actual content doesn't matter even a little bit. The packaging is everything.
The title is a wrapper, and you can put whatever garbage you want inside the wrapper as long as the star is famous.
It is the absolute destruction of artistic intent, driven purely by the cold logic of the marketplace. The executive looks at Shakespeare and sees only raw material to be mined and reshaped to fit the current celebrity of the week. And how does our noble, starving, suffering playwright, the guy who fought off Gilbert Miller, who snatched his playback from the Theater Guild, who ran away from Michael Taub's Central Park Circus. How does he respond to this final, ultimate desecration of art? Goldwyn makes his offer. And if you'll sell me that title, by heck, I'll wire you at once a blanket check.
And the playwright, after all his grand posturing about his art, simply says, "So I sold him the title that day, and that's what became of my play. Yes, that's what became of my play."
He sells out. He absolutely, unequivocally cashes in.
He totally folds.
He fought off the European snobbery. He fought off the ponderous weight of the institution. He fought off the tacky spectacle. But when the Hollywood executive waves a blank check in his face just for the intellectual property rights to his title, he takes the money and runs.
His principles evaporate the second the check clears.
The actual play, the manuscript he spent many a hungry year writing and protecting, has vanished completely into the ether.
It doesn't exist anymore. It will never be staged. All that remains is the commercial transaction.
It's cynical, but it's also hilarious and deeply fundamentally human. Porter transforms this familiar, heartbreaking, artistic frustration into brilliant comedy. The song is essentially suggesting that success in show business absolutely requires surrendering control.
Yes.
And that true artistic integrity, always taking your playback, always fighting for your vision, might just mean you remain hungry forever. Eventually, everyone gets tired. Eventually, everyone takes the check.
What's so remarkable, though, about Porter's execution here is that he never sounds bitter.
That's a really good point.
As we noted earlier, his own life was marked by immense daily physical pain. And he dealt with these exact types of producers his entire career. He had every right to be bitter, but his art remained joyful.
He's above it all.
The song laughs at the absurdity rather than delivering a heavy-handed, moralizing condemnation of the industry. The entertainment industry, in Porter's hands, isn't some evil, soul-crushing villain that must be defeated.
It is just gloriously, inherently, reliably ridiculous. It's a circus of egos, and the best you can do is point a lass at the clowns.
Well said.
So let's zoom out a bit and look at Porter's songs as these incredible cultural time capsules. Because the references in this song reveal so much about what America valued, feared, and laughed at in 1944.
They really do function as a cultural map.
The names in I Wrote a Play are a precise geography of what Americans admired and engaged with during that era.
Absolutely. They admired the elegant, refined star power of actors like Alfred Lunt and Lynn Fontanne. They respected, even if they found them intimidating, literary giants like Eugene O'Neill, George Bernard Shaw, and Ferenc Molnar.
And they were fascinated by entrepreneurial, larger-than-life, rule-breaking showmen like Michael Todd and Sam Goldwyn.
And they were captivated by the transgressive, winking glamour of personalities like Gypsy Rose Lee.
And most importantly, the audience sitting in the theater for Seven Lively Arts in 1944 recognized every single one of these names instantly.
It was immediate for them.
When the singer dropped the name Gilbert Miller, the audience didn't need a footnote. They didn't need us to do an hour-long breakdown. They laughed immediately because they knew exactly the type of pretentious producer Porter was skewering.
This raises an important question, though, about the nature of topical comedy and its longevity.
Right? Because time passes.
Today, many of these references require exactly the kind of historical excavation we've been doing. Modern audiences certainly still know Shakespeare, and theater kids know Eugene O'Neill, but names like Gilbert Miller or Ferenc Molnar or even Man Mountain Dean have faded from the collective mainstream memory.
It was just gone.
The immediate instinctual punch of the joke relies on a shared cultural context that no longer exists.
Does that mean the song fails for a modern audience? If you have to explain the joke, does the song die?
Not at all. And that is the true mark of Porter's genius.
How so?
The humor remains incredibly effective because the underlying archetypes haven't changed one bit.
Ah, I see.
We might not know who Gilbert Miller is, but anyone who has ever worked in an office, let alone the arts, absolutely recognizes the snobby executive who thinks an idea isn't valid until a fancy consultant touches it.
Oh, absolutely. The person who needs everything to be complicated.
Exactly. We recognize the institutional gatekeepers who equate length and misery with profound importance. We recognize the loud, populist marketer who just wants to add explosions.
And we certainly recognize the Hollywood executive who only cares about the intellectual property rights to a title so they can reboot it with a famous comedian.
It happens every day. The fading of the specific names is actually what makes Porter's work so vital for us today. These songs are historical documents. They preserve the landscape of celebrity prestige and mid-century aspiration while highlighting the permanent flaws in human nature.
So what does this all mean? When we put all of these pieces together, The historical context of a war-weary 1944, Cole Porter's meticulous, pain-defying craftsmanship, the escalating narrative structure of the lyrics, and the razor-sharp satirical targets, what is the ultimate takeaway from our exploration of I Wrote a Play?
The takeaway is that Cole Porter was never merely a songwriter who just rhythmically rhymed moon and June to make a quick buck.
He was a commentator.
He was a brilliant, incisive social observer. He had an extraordinary, unmatched eye for the absurdity of human ambition. Through a song that feels light, bubbly, conversational, and effortless, he manages to expose the intense, competing demands of commerce, art, celebrity, fashion, and ego. He charts the entire theatrical ecosystem of his time, from the high-minded guild to the Hollywood meat grinder, in a matter of minutes.
And he does it with a wry smile. The fictional narrator loses his play, but Cole Porter gains something infinitely more valuable. He creates a perfect, crystalline, conic metaphor for the entertainment industry itself.
That's beautifully put.
Every producer sees potential, but only if they can change it to reflect themselves. Every expert wants improvements that ruin the original simple charm. Every revision moves the art further and further away from the creator's vision. And yet, the entire chaotic, ego-driven process is so delightfully, reliably ridiculous that all you can do is shake your head and laugh.
And ultimately cash the check.
Exactly. Cash the blanket check and go home. We have been on an incredible journey today, tracing the life, the mutilation, and the ultimate death of a little play called Boy Loves Girl.
R.I.P. to the play.
We've watched a simple idea get battered by the competing forces of Broadway prestige, theatrical bloat, burlesque spectacle, and Hollywood commodification. And through it all, we've seen the brilliant mechanics of Porter's escalating lists at work, turning the grinding, soulless machinery of entertainment into high, sophisticated comedy.
It is a testament to why we continue to study, perform, and marvel at his work nearly a century later. He captured the human condition, wrapped it in incredibly sophisticated melodies, and served it to us with a knowing wink.
And that brings us to the end of our exploration today. But before you go, I want to leave you with a final, somewhat provocative thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
We've spent this whole time laughing at how the fictional playwright lost his precious play to the meat grinder of show business and how he ultimately sold out his artistic integrity for a check. His art was destroyed.
Right.
But consider this. By meticulously documenting that exact failure, by turning that specific artistic compromise into a perfectly crafted comic song, Cole Porter created a perfect, enduring piece of art that we are still talking about today.
Oh, wow.
The Boy Loves Girl was a failure, but the song about the failure is immortal. Does true artistic immortality only come when a creator finally stops taking the business of art so seriously, lets go of their precious ego, and just starts laughing at the sheer absurdity of it all?
That is a wonderful, complex question to sit with.
Thank you all for joining us on this exploration. Remember to check the description for the links to the performance, the full lyrics, and the Porter-Pedia book, and we will see you next time.